Not. The night I found out I had $2.3 million sitting in my name, I was eating a microwaved burrito on the floor of my apartment because I'd sold my dining table to cover rent. I know how that sounds, but that's exactly how it happened. My name is Hazel. I'm 31 years old. I worked as a paralegal at a mid-sized firm in Columbus, Ohio. Nothing glamorous. I made enough to survive, not enough to breathe easy. And for the longest time I told myself that was fine, that it would get better, that one day my family would look at me and see someone worth being proud of. I was wrong about a lot of things back then. Let me back up. I was the youngest of three in a family that had very clear ideas about what success looked like. My oldest brother was an orthodontist. His wife, my sister-in-law, who is central to the story, came from a family with even more money than his. And then there was my other brother, who'd gotten into finance right out of college and never let anyone forget it. And then there was me, the one who'd chosen to go into law but not as a lawyer. The one who rented instead of owned. The one who brought wine that cost $12 to Thanksgiving dinner and got the look every single time. The look. If you know, you know. It's not anger. It's something worse. It's a specific kind of disappointment that says, we expected more, and you have failed to deliver, and we have quietly accepted this about you. My mother gave that look better than anyone I've ever met. She wasn't cruel in obvious ways. She never screamed. She never said anything you could point to and say, there, that's the thing that hurt me. It was always subtle. A comment about my apartment being cozy in the tone you'd use to describe a hospital waiting room. A casual mention of what my brothers were earning slipped into conversation like it was nothing. A pause, just a half-second too long before she'd answer when someone asked how all her kids were doing. My sister-in-law, my older brother's wife, was different. Her name is June, and she married into this family the same way I was born into it, slightly out of place, always being quietly measured against some invisible standard. Except June never seemed to mind, or maybe she minded and just got very good at not showing it. Either way, she was the only person in that house who ever asked how I was doing and actually waited for the answer. I didn't fully appreciate that until everything fell apart. Here's what happened. About 2 years ago, my firm went through a restructuring. That's the corporate word for it. What it actually meant was that 17 people lost their jobs on a Tuesday afternoon via a form email, and I was one of them. I had about 4 months of savings. I had no backup plan. And I had, at that point, a family who I had spent years hoping would show up for me if things got bad enough. I didn't tell anyone right away. I spent the first 2 weeks applying for jobs, telling myself I'd have something lined up before I had to say anything. But the market was slow. The interviews weren't coming. And my savings were bleeding out faster than I'd budgeted, because I'd made the rookie mistake of not accounting for how expensive it is to be stressed. By month 2, I was selling things. The dining table went first. Then a bookshelf I'd had since college. Then a camera I'd bought myself as a birthday gift 3 years earlier and never used as much as I'd meant to. I told myself I was decluttering. I finally called my mother in early November. I remember it was cold that week. One of those early Ohio winters that arrives before you're ready for it. I sat on my kitchen floor with my back against the cabinet. I still had cabinets at least. And I told her I'd lost my job. That I was struggling. That I might need help, just temporarily, just a small loan to get through until I found something. She was quiet for a moment, then she said, Hazel, you know your father and I are on a fixed income. My father had retired the year before from a career in engineering. They were not, by any definition, on a fixed income in the way that phrase is meant to imply. But I didn't say that. I know, I said. I didn't know who else to call. Had you tried your brothers? I had. My older brother had listened, said that's rough, and then mentioned that they'd just put a deposit down on a vacation property in Hilton Head. My other brother didn't pick up. He texted back 2 hours later, tight right now, you'll figure it out, you always do. I had never, not once in my life, given either of them reason to believe I always figured it out. That was not a reputation I had earned. That was just something people say when they don't want to help. I'll figure something out, I told my mother. I'm sure you will, she said. You're resilient. Resilient. That's another word like cozy. It sounds like a compliment until you realize it's just a polished way of saying, you're on your own, and I've decided that's okay. I hung up and ate the microwave burrito on the floor and thought about how I had nowhere left to turn. Then my phone rang. It was June. I hadn't called her. I want to be clear about that. My brother must have mentioned something to her, or maybe she put pieces together herself, because June was sharp like that, always picking up on things people left unsaid. But she called me, and when I answered, she said, "Tell me what's actually going on." And I did. I don't know why. Maybe because she asked with a tone that made it clear she actually wanted to know. I told her about the job, the savings, the table I'd sold, the camera. I told her about calling my mother and my brothers. I didn't cry, but it was close. When I finished, June was quiet for a second. Then she said, "Okay. I'm going to send you something. Don't argue with me." June. I mean it. Don't argue. She sent me $1,400 that night. She later told me when I pushed, most of what she had in her personal account. The one that was hers, separate from what she and my brother shared. She had been quietly setting it aside for years, a little at a time. Money that was just hers in a marriage that didn't always make her feel like things were equally hers. And she sent most of it to me without hesitating. I cried then. I found a job 6 weeks later, not a great job. A step down from what I'd had, less money, longer hours, but it was something. I pulled myself out of the hole slowly. And the whole time, June was the only person in my family who asked how the search was going. The only one who texted on a Tuesday for no reason just to say she was thinking about me. The only one who treated my struggle like it was something worth taking seriously, instead of an inconvenience in the story of how well everyone else was doing. I paid her back in February. She told me not to. I did anyway. And then, in March of that year, something happened that I didn't see coming. I need to give you a little background first. My mother's side of the family had a great aunt. Her name was Harriet, who I had met exactly 4 times in my life. She was sharp, funny, a little eccentric, and had spent 40 years working in real estate in Phoenix before retiring to a house in Scottsdale with 2 dogs and a very specific vision for how she wanted to spend the rest of her life. She had no children. She had been quietly wealthy for a long time in the way that people who live below their means and invest carefully tend to be. Harriet died in February. I sent flowers when I heard, because that's what you do, and I didn't think much more about it. In March, I got a letter from an estate attorney in Arizona. I read it 3 times before I understood what it said. Harriet had left me $2.3 million. Not my mother. Not my brothers. Me. The letter said she had followed my life from a distance, that she had appreciated something she called my quiet persistence, and that she had seen in me something she recognized from her own early years. There was a longer letter from Harriet herself written by hand that the attorney included. I won't share what it said because it's mine and I'm still not ready to. But I sat at my kitchen table. I had bought a new one by then, a small second-hand one from a Facebook marketplace listing. And I read her words and I shook. I did not tell anyone. I want to explain why because I think it matters. It wasn't calculated at first. It wasn't a plan. It was more that I sat with this enormous secret and thought about who in my life I trusted with it, and the answer came back almost immediately. No one. Or almost no one. I thought about my mother's voice saying, "You're resilient," while I was eating a burrito on the floor. I thought about my brother's text, "You'll figure it out." I thought about the vacation property in Hilton Head, and then I thought about June wiring me $1,400 from her personal account without being asked. I called her the next day. "I need to tell you something," I said, "and I need you to not tell anyone, not even," I paused. "Not even him." She knew who I meant. "Okay," she said. "I mean it, June." "Okay," she said. "I mean it, June." No one. Hazel. Her voice was even calm. "Okay." So I told her, and she was quiet for so long I thought the call had dropped, and then she said very softly, "Oh Hazel, oh Hazel, oh wow. Yeah, are you okay?" I laughed. It came out a little unsteady. "I don't know. I think so. I don't know what to do with it. You don't have to know right now, she said. You have time. I worked with an attorney over the following months, not the estate attorney, a separate one I found and paid for myself to figure out how to handle everything quietly. I set up accounts. I made decisions carefully, slowly, with help from people who were paid to keep my affairs private. I kept going to my regular job, my step-down job with the longer hours, because I wasn't ready to change anything yet. I wasn't ready to be visible. June kept my secret for 8 months. 8 months of my mother asking her at Sunday dinners how I was doing and June saying, "She seems good. I think she's settling in at the new job," and not saying anything else. 8 months of my brothers assuming I was still quietly struggling at the margins of the family, still the one who brought the $12 wine. And during those 8 months, I watched some things more carefully than I ever had before. I watched my older brother speak to June at dinner. The way he'd correct her when she said something in front of company. The way he'd make a joke at her expense and then look around to see if anyone laughed, and they usually did, because he was charming when he wanted to be. The way June would go quiet in those moments and look at her plate. I'd seen it before, but I'd told myself it wasn't my business. Now, with some distance and a lot of clarity, I started calling it what it was. He wasn't kind to her. He hadn't been for a long time. And she had nowhere to go. Or so everyone thought. Late in the fall, my older brother called me. This was unusual enough that I let it go to voicemail the first time, then listened, then called back. He wanted to know if I could help with something. A short-term thing, he said. A cash flow issue. The vacation property had come with some unexpected costs, and there was a thing with the investment account, and would I be able to? I want to be careful here. I don't want to paint myself as someone who felt nothing. I did feel something. It was complicated. This was still my brother. But it was also the same person who had texted, "You'll figure it out," while I was selling my furniture to make rent. "I'm not really in a position to help right now," I said. "You know how it's been." "Right," he said. There was a pause. "Right, yeah. No, totally understand." He didn't ask how I was doing. My other brother called a few weeks later. Different situation, same shape. Could I maybe, just temporarily? It wouldn't be for long. "I'm sorry," I said. "I really can't." And then came Christmas. My mother hosted, as she always did. I brought a bottle of wine. A good one this time, because I could, even though no one knew that. And I sat at the table and I watched my family the way you watch something from behind glass. June caught my eye once across the table and something passed between us, some small acknowledgement, and then we both looked away. After dinner, when people had scattered to different rooms, my mother found me in the kitchen doing dishes. She stood next to me and picked up a dish towel, and for a moment we were just quiet together. "You seem different," she said. "Do I? More settled. Is work going better?" "It's okay," I said. She nodded. Then, carefully, "I've been thinking, Hazel, about what you might want to do with yourself, career-wise. Your brother knows some people. I wonder if it might be worth having a conversation." I kept washing the dish in my hand. "I appreciate that." "You're 31, she said. "It's not too late to redirect." I set the dish in the rack. "Mom," I said, "do you remember calling me resilient?" She looked puzzled. "I'm sure I have." "Why?" "Nothing," I said. "Never mind." In January, I resigned from my job. I told my supervisor I was taking some time for personal reasons. She was kind about it. I cleaned out my desk on a Thursday afternoon and drove home feeling lighter than I had in years. I waited another month before I told my mother. I drove to her house on a Saturday morning. I sat across from her at the kitchen table where I had done homework as a kid, where I had eaten breakfast before school, where she had once told me, when I was 16 and had just gotten a B- on a math test, that I needed to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. I told her about Harriet's inheritance. I told her I had known for almost a year. I watched her face go through several stages of something I didn't have a clean word for. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked. I thought about it for a second. Because I needed to know what things looked like when no one knew. She was quiet. "I'm not angry," I said. And I meant it, mostly. "I just needed you to know that I know. That I saw it. That I've always seen it." I didn't spell out what it was. I didn't need to. She knew. What I did after that, I did quietly and without announcing it. I found June a good attorney. Not a family law attorney I knew through my old firm. Someone new. Someone she'd never have thought to find on her own. Someone who specialized in exactly her situation. I paid the retainer. I told June it was a gift, non-negotiable, and that she could do whatever she wanted with it. Use the attorney or don't, that was her choice. But the option was there. She used it. I'm not going to share the details of what happened with June and my brother's marriage. That's her story, not mine. But I'll say that she's renting a small house now, about 20 minutes from where I bought my place. Yes, I bought a place, a real one, with a dining room that has a real table in it, and she has a dog named Biscuit, who is genuinely the most unserious animal I have ever met. And when she calls me now, she laughs differently than she used to. Easier. Lighter. My brothers found out about the money eventually. These things don't stay secret forever, and I hadn't been trying to hide it indefinitely. I just needed time on my own terms. The reactions were about what I expected. There was some anger that I hadn't said anything sooner. Some pointed questions about why June had known, and they hadn't. Some comments from my mother that I filed away and chose not to respond to. I didn't give my brothers any money. I thought about it a long time, sat with the discomfort of it, really tried to examine whether I was being petty or whether I was being honest. I don't think I was being petty. I think there are things that happen between people that change the shape of what's owed, and you'll figure it out. Sent via text while someone you love is drowning is one of those things. Maybe I'll feel differently in 5 years. I'm leaving that door open, but I'm not walking through it yet. My mother and I are. We're working on it, that's the honest answer. She is not a villain. She is a woman who had very specific ideas about what success looked like and communicated them in ways that did real damage, and she is also my mother, and I am not finished with her yet. We have dinner sometimes. She has stopped making comments about my career trajectory. Holidays are quieter than they used to be, which sounds sad, but it honestly isn't. There's something almost peaceful about sitting across from someone and not waiting for the look. Last month, June came over for dinner and we sat at my real table, and Biscuit begged for scraps the whole time, and she told me about a job she'd just applied for, something she'd wanted for years but had always talked herself out of. She was nervous about it. I told her she'd get it. She did. There's something I keep coming back to, something I've been trying to work out how to say. When Harriet left me that money, she wrote in her letter that she'd seen something in me. She called it quiet persistence. At the time, I read that and felt a little sad about it because quiet persistence sounds like what you say about someone who has been trying and failing for a long time and just hasn't given up. It sounded like the inheritance version of resilient, but I've been thinking about it differently lately. I think Harriet was specific about that phrase for a reason. I think she meant it the way you'd mean it about someone who keeps showing up, even when showing up doesn't get rewarded. Who pays back money she didn't have to pay back? Who brings the $12 wine and sits through the look and still comes to Christmas dinner? I don't think she was saying I was a good victim. I think she was saying she recognized something in me that she recognized in herself, which was the capacity to keep going without needing applause for it. She saw that I wasn't waiting for permission to be okay. I think about that a lot. About what it means to be seen by someone who isn't close to you, when the people closest to you have spent years looking just past you. My apartment has good light in the mornings. I noticed that the first week I moved in, there's a window in the kitchen that faces east, and in the first hour after sunrise, everything is this particular warm gold. And I make coffee and I stand there and I don't take it for granted. I know too well what it feels like to stand in a kitchen and feel like you are disappearing. I'm not disappearing anymore, and neither is June. I've been sitting with the story for a while now, trying to figure out what it actually taught me. Not the surface version, not find your real family, or money reveals people's true colors, because those are things you can stitch on a pillow, and they don't cost anyone anything to say. I mean the harder version. The one that took me a long time to be honest about. Here's what I think is true. The way people treat you when you have nothing is information. Not a test you designed, not a trap you set. Just information, freely given, that you can choose to use or choose to ignore. For years I ignored it. I kept showing up to dinners and absorbing the looks and telling myself that one day things would be different, that if I could just achieve enough, earn enough, become enough, the dynamic would shift. That's a very human thing to believe. It's also, I now understand, a way of giving other people's behavior more power over your life than it deserves. What June did. Wiring me money from an account she'd spent years quietly building. Money that was hers in a marriage that didn't always make her feel like things were equally hers. That wasn't a small thing. She didn't do it because she had extra. She did it because she decided I mattered more than the safety net. That's a moral choice, not a financial one. And moral choices like that don't come from nowhere. They come from a person who has spent their whole life deciding, quietly and without applause, what kind of person they want to be. I think that's what Harriet saw in me too, from a distance. Not that I was exceptional, not that I was impressive, just that I kept deciding over and over to show up with integrity even when no one was rewarding me for it, paying back the $1,400 when I didn't have to, bringing the wine, coming to Christmas. Not because I was naive about what was happening, but because I didn't want to become someone who let bitterness make decisions for me. There's a version of this story where I become someone else, where the years of being dismissed quietly curdle into something mean, and I use the inheritance as a weapon instead of a tool. I thought about that version. I'd be lying if I said the thought didn't cross my mind, but I kept coming back to the same question: what kind of person do I want to be when this is over? And the answer was always the same. I wanted to be someone June would call on a Tuesday for no reason. I wanted to be someone Harriet would recognize. That's not about being selfless. I set real limits. I said no to my brothers and I meant it, and I'm at peace with it. But there's a difference between protecting yourself and punishing everyone. I knew the difference and I tried to stay on the right side of it. The thing about integrity is that it doesn't pay off on a schedule. You don't do the right thing and then immediately get rewarded. Sometimes you do the right thing for years and eat burritos on the floor and wonder if any of it is adding up to something. It is. It just doesn't always look like what you expected. Sometimes it looks like a letter from an attorney in Arizona. Sometimes it looks like your sister-in-law laughing differently on the phone than she used to. I think about June in her house, 20 minutes away, with Biscuit begging at her feet, and I think, that's it. That's the thing, not the money, not the karma, not the poetic justice of watching people who dismiss me have to reckon with what they chose. It's just two people who decided to show up for each other, and the quiet, ordinary, irreplaceable life that gets built when you do.